So I'm back. Finally, it's been a couple days. I wasn't gonna do it because people say back and forth. Don't have to do it. You have to do it. Might have to do it. So I just said screw it. So before I put the cover back on, I use this method. There's a 2000 shim there, and I already did this. So there was one on the bottom, a half moon, like here and there, which centers it in a complete circle. So, and then when I was done with that, I was able to slide the 2000s in here and here freely with no issues. So I'm just gonna take it out, but that's all it was. It just had those in like that to center it. Just a peace of mind. It's just one of those things. I'm here. It literally took 10 minutes, if that. So on to the next. All right, I got the front cover back on. Let's see. I used the centering tool right here. So this slides in to the front cover, and it perfectly centers this cover where it's supposed to be. And then you can tighten it down and then tighten the oil pan up to it. And then you don't have to worry about leaks. And this also helps install the new seal. I mean, it's just put it right over there and it just puts it right in perfect. So I got that seal perfectly up in there. That tool basically goes like this. And then I use this on top of it just so it was easier to hit, and I don't like hitting that, straight up. But it goes right in without going in crooked or anything like that, and you don't have to worry about it. So there you have it. So I got the crank bolt torqued down. What I did was I had a mark here after it was torqued down to its first round of torque, and then the next was to go 125 degrees. So I marked it here. It's a little over 125, and I just turned the bolt till I got to my mark, and then I stopped. So after I get everything on the front, I'm gonna put this on to 10% overdrive. It just goes into these 3 holes right there, and that's easy to swap out down the road if you ever want to change it bigger or smaller, whatever you need. All right, I know I said I was gonna video it going back together, but I mean, I did most of it back together already. So I mean, you're putting on, after the timing cover I showed you, the next move is your water. Well, actually, I did the belt on the bottom. The air conditioner belt is super easy to put on with everything out of the way. You just roll it on by spinning the crank. And then after that, I put the water pump back on, these blower idler pulleys, and then I dropped the radiator in next. After the radiator was in, I hooked up and plugged in all the fans, hooked these cooler lines back up, and those are, what I mean by hooked up is there's brackets that hold them to the fan so they're not flopping into the belts. The little E-clips or whatever that hold these, this one and the lower one. Anyway, here is the lower one right there. Okay, and then that is a bigger capacity in the heat exchanger, and basically, and this does have a place to bleed the air out of, which is nice. The other Magnuson one I had that too. Putting it back together was a lot easier than taking it apart because I knew what I took off. So you just have to, you got there's 4 bolts almost for everything except for I think this is the oil cooler. I'm not really sure. Oil cooler or the power steering cooler. I'm not sure. There's 4 coolers. So there's one bolt that goes intertwines with the bumper bolts. There's 2 here and there's 2 on the other side. And then these brackets you have to put back in. But other than that, it went together super easy. So I'm leaving the cover off right now. So it's easier to lean over the car and not be leaning over the front bumper and maybe messing it up. So I'm done with the cam part of this, obviously. What I'm in the middle of now is taking off the supercharger. It doesn't look too bad other than this thing, it was 100% bone stock. So they didn't have a catch can on it or nothing. And this is why I like to have one. People say you don't need it, but who wants this oily mess in here? So for the new one, I'm definitely gonna want that. But this does feel nice and smooth. It's a 2015, and from what I understand, they have a solid coupler. So instead of having that spring-loaded one. So next thing I'm doing is pulling this intake off, and then I'm gonna get to the valve spring swap and the so in one of the other clips, I showed you the needle bearings that fell out. So I got these, it's one piece all the way across. And they use the stock style rockers, but they're bushed instead of needle bearings. And since they're in a solid one piece shaft, I'm never gonna have to worry about any kind of flex, or the stability will be perfect. And with the bushings, with this whole setup, I should never have to worry about rocker arms ever. So I got all the bolts out. What I used was a 90-degree. I mean, you don't have to, but I used a 90-degree needle nose. You can grab under the shoulder of the bolt and just pull straight up. You don't have to worry about possibly dropping it. At this point, the blower should be loose. I think everything's unhooked from it. And I should be able to just take it off. Okay, it came right off. So I did have to unhook that. But other than that, there was no issues. So there it is. I just have some stuff to swap over to the other one. And that'll be it. But now I have more room to mess with this. Way easier. I want to do that whole thing. I want to get all this done, buttoned up, and then I'll put the other stuff back on it. Okay. Next, they have you, well, it's not next, but this is what I'm going to do next. Is I'm take this valley cover off. I already got the bolts out. And they have another one that goes in its place that moves the oil pressure piece horizontal so that it's sticking out the back, which is probably good for if you ever need to change it out at some other time, because it'll be probably easier to remove. So there's a different cover right here, and you have to put the O-rings in it and the gasket surrounding it, and then this is the adapter for the oil sender. Okay, I have the new cover plate ready to go in. I got to put one more in there. But yeah, so I got to pop one more O-ring in here, and then pretty much throw this adapter on there with the sending unit, and then that part's done. And I suppose I could do this part too. They have you bridging these two sides. These two pieces are going away. Okay, I got the plate on. It uses Allen's, all 18 foot-pounds. And there's the adapter, which turned horizontally. So it's going to come at an angle that way towards the back. So I just have to screw the sensor in and then just plug it in. Okay, so I addressed that rocker arm issue with these BSR shafts. I mentioned them earlier, but here they are. Pretty easy install. It's one piece. You just torque them down to 22 foot-pounds, starting from the center, working your way out. And what I did is I set them in oil for probably 15-20 minutes just so they can get all up inside the where the bushings are. The measurements ended up being stock push rod length, so that's what I'm gonna go with. It's about with the stock push rods, it's about 80 thousandths preload, so that's where they spec it like 50 to 80. So we're on the high end of it, but that's where I want to leave it. Maybe won't be noisy. So next, I'm going to put the gaskets and the valve covers, get those on, and then I'm probably going to get the headers put on and get the O2s hooked up with the extensions I got. That way, once I put the blower on, I don't know how much room I'm going to have behind. There's a little more room with the other one, but this one, I'm not sure. Maybe it's not because it does taper in the back. So I just don't want to chance it. I'm just going to do it that way. So we're going to get to that.